Ah!
Hi, welcome to Let's Talk About It Tuesday. I'm Georgette, I'm the mom.
And I'm TJ, I'm the son.
And we both study and work in the field of psychology. We are passionate about sharing what we know with you so that you can live your best life. So today we're going to talk about defense mechanisms. And to just give you some background, Freud proposed that our personality was broken up into three parts: the id, the ego, and the superego. The id is that spoiled brat. It operates according to the pleasure principle. I want it now, right? The superego is that component of the personality that reflects your societal and pressures and operates on the morality principle. And you can think about those two components as being like the angel and the devil on your shoulders, you know. And then the ego is that component of the personality that tries to rationalize between the two. That is the reality principle. And what happens is when there's a conflict between the id and the superego, it causes us anxiety. And the ego copes with that by utilizing defense mechanisms. So that's just some kind of history on defense mechanisms. And there are three levels. There's kind of a base level that even kids use, and then we have much more mature levels as we get older and more mature. So we're going to start talking about those. So one of the primary ones is denial, right? Refusing to acknowledge the source of your anxiety.
Yeah. Not much to go. Yeah. That's all I got.
Like not accepting if your significant other is cheating on you, right? I'm not deny beliefs, regardless of the evidence. You know?
Yeah. Not accepting your some things in your circumstantial, right?
Projection. So this is when you attribute unacceptable personal qualities to other people. And these are your own personal qualities. So you might attribute those to other people and not see them in yourself. This projection. For example, talking to a friend about somebody who is talking about other people.
Yeah.
You know,
It's easier for us to see the faults in others that are really the faults that we see in ourselves because it's always on our mind, even if it doesn't matter who it's necessarily going towards, though, right?
Right. Well, isn't there an expression about seeing in other people what you don't see in yourself? That's basically what we're talking about there.
You're so used to seeing it in yourself and recognizing and hating yourself for it that, hey, someone else has got it. I can see that.
Right. Regression, that is another defense mechanism, and it is the reversion to an earlier stage of development in the face of unacceptable thoughts or impulses. And so you might see this in a child if mom and dad bring a new baby into the house. You know, all of a sudden they start acting like a baby because they see it's getting their sibling more attention.
Even us, if you want to talk about, we talked about emotional regulation either last week or a couple of weeks ago, but that's almost like that instinctual emotional reaction that we all have, which is that kind of the irrational, the selfish, the boom, want what you want when you want, and that's why we talk about having to relax, because if you don't, you'll end up behaving very childlike, because that's the state that we kind of get into in that fight, flight, or freeze response and conflict and all that.
Right. I even see this in my workplace. I have people who hire on and they are, rock stars. They're awesome. But then they start to understand the enormity of the job and how complex it is, and they lose confidence. And then they start asking me questions, and I know they know the answer to. They just lose confidence, so they kind of regress a little bit.
Yeah. Even if their skills are up here, it really doesn't matter how good your skills are if your confidence is down here.
Yeah. Acting out, performing an extreme behavior in order to express thoughts or feelings that person feels incapable of otherwise expressing.
Yeah, when you can't find the words or the cognitive process, it just comes out in that big old mess. I'm sure we're all have been victim to from time to time.
We've all, even adults, throw tantrums every once in a while when we don't get our way, right?
More than every once in a while.
Dissociation is another one. This is when a person loses track of time and or their person and instead finds another representation of themselves in order to continue in the moment. So a person who dissociates often loses track of time or themselves and their usual thought processes and memories too. So an example of this is, and it's happened to me before, I don't know if it's happened to you, but you get so nervous in a particular situation, like maybe having to do a public speech, that when it's over, you honestly can't remember what you said. You just kind of dissociate for a little bit.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I used to do that accidentally after a wrestling match. I'd be like, I don't know what just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily that I wasn't trying to remember that, but yeah, maybe I was disassociating myself.
Yeah, even for just a little bit. Compartmentalization is a lesser form of dissociation. It's where you can separate parts of yourself from awareness. And sometimes, like when we're balancing work, life, and school, each have their own stressors. You can kind of compartmentalize one part while you're focusing on another at the moment.
And sometimes you compartmentalize and never actually end up opening that box again, which is where it bites you in the ass later on.
Right. Reaction formation, that's another one. That is warding off uncomfortable thoughts by overemphasizing the opposite. And an example of that is you have a crush on somebody, and instead of acting on it, you act like you hate the person. We see this even in the playground.
Good times. Oh, good times. Oh, Camille, I remember you. I'm just kidding. Was that a name from my past?
That was not a name from your past.
All right, I'm making stuff up now. Okay, cool.
So those are some of the primary, those are some of our primary defense mechanisms. As we get a little bit higher in maturity, we've got repression, and which is where you exclude the source of your anxiety from your awareness. You just exclude it. For example, maybe you get into a car accident, or you have some kind of an accident and you just can't remember the facts because in that moment you just kind of repressed the part you couldn't deal with.
And you keep pushing away and pushing away, and then you keep pushing away to the point that even from a subconscious standpoint, it's like, all right, you don't want to deal with it. I'm just going to keep burying it. It's harder and harder to cognitively work through, and that's why it becomes an issue in other aspects of our life.
Right.
Boom.
Rationalization, creating a seemingly logical reason or excuse for behavior that might otherwise be shameful.
Like that ice cream that's thawing out right now. We just played some tennis.
How are you? I was going to say, how are you rationalizing that?
Dude, I eat really well on the weekend. I eat really well during the weekdays. I work out a lot, and I work out so that I can eat ice cream. And here's another, because I like a little more to love. I like a little padding, you know. I just think getting super shredded is just super unnecessary. That's why I'm not super shredded.
So whenever we have a conflict, when we have two ideas or attitudes or behaviors that conflict with one another, that's called the tension that's created is called cognitive dissonance. And often how we make one decision versus another is by rationalizing. Like, I know I shouldn't eat ice cream, but I want ice cream. Those are two competing thoughts that we have, and so we do several things. We can add a cognition, modify a cognition, deny that one is important, but rationalization is like the key to why we make those decisions.
I'm gonna eat it regardless, so it don't matter.
Displacement, shifting the attention of emotion from one object to another easier target.
Oh yeah, to an easier target. Are you looking at me for like an advice? Whoa.
No, we could. I thought you had an idea that came to mind.
No. What do you have?
So you have a bad day at work and you come home and you take it out on the people because you can't take it out on your boss, right?
Yeah,
so you go home and you take it out on your loved ones. You kick the dog or whatever you do.
A lack of compartmentalization.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I think most people always yell at people for more underlying reasons than that person, right? Whenever somebody yells at you, it's almost always more a reflection of them than it is on you, because the overreaction is like it's a little bit more overcompensating because of some other issue,
right?
Even outside of their awareness.
And like you go with the lesser of the evils.
Yeah.
Why is it doing that? Undoing is another defense mechanism, and that is an attempt to take back an unconscious behavior or thought that is unacceptable or hurtful. And that is often what we do when we're apologizing to somebody for something that we did, trying to take it back. The next one is intellectualization. This is an overemphasis on thinking when confronted with an unacceptable impulse, situation, or behavior without employing any emotions whatsoever to help mediate or place the thoughts into an emotional human context. Said differently, you get some news that you can't emotionally handle, so you, instead of emotionally handling it, you research it, you get information, you educate yourself. Just kind of take a really practical approach instead of an emotional approach approach to the problem.
Yeah, well, I like that one of all the ones we've named so far. I like that one, and researching it and more so finding out maybe the things that you can do about the situation, not necessarily the things that you cannot do about the situation, where a lot of people get stuck, especially on those defense mechanisms.
Right. Well, defense mechanisms aren't bad. I mean, we all use them. You just need to use them in a healthy manner.
Moderation.
And some of these, right, the key to life, some of these are actually very mature ways to handle a problem that you have. Intellectualism is my go-to. If I get the first thing I do and I get information that causes me anxieties, I start looking it up. I Google it.
Yes, she does.
Because it just helps me to be armed. I feel like knowledge is power, and so that's what I'm doing.
Ooh, I like that.
Sublimation, channeling socially unacceptable impulse into constructive, even admirable behavior. So these are those people who might have like a food addiction, who go into a career as a nutritionist, or people who have trouble, controlling their diet, and they go work out instead. Basically, taking those unacceptable impulses and making them constructive.
Almost like a negative reinforcement, right?
Yeah.
Trying to take it and learn from it and maybe get something better out of it.
Right. Or it could be in an unhealthy way, an attempt to cover up what you're really feeling. Like, I'm proving to you that I'm healthy because I'm doing this, even though I really, really want to do something else. So you're not acknowledging those emotions.
You think the end result is helping, but it's always about the journey. So even for this one, it says that you go to the gym because you're overeating and stuff like that. If you don't kind of fix or kind of work through the overeater, if you just keep getting more fit, it still might not necessarily get you through that because it's not cognitive, maybe just physical.
Right, you're not accepting it, maybe even.
Yeah.
Compensation, and so these latter ones I'm talking about, these are a higher level of maturity, as you can kind of tell. Compensation is psychologically counterbalancing the perceived weakness by emphasizing the strength in other areas. And I actually talk about this in my class, and I had my students come up with examples. And for compensation, a student said buying a big truck. Right? I thought that was funny. Or if you're a smaller person, working out so that you can appear bigger. So you're compensating for what you can control with something you can't control, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Assertiveness, the emphasis of a person's need or thoughts in a manner that is respectful, direct, and firm. And I think this is a great defense mechanism to use. It's really about setting boundaries in relationships. That could be one example of that.
Yeah, and even going back to compensation, even when like a lot of a situation is not necessarily going your way, emphasizing the more helpful. You just moved it. Where did it go?
Oh, sorry.
Where is it? Where'd it go?
The assertiveness and boundaries.
Oh yeah. You know what? I forgot what I was saying. It's okay. I'm all good.
My bad. I couldn't believe we were already kind of towards the end of it because it went so quick.
I like it.
One thing we would like to know from you is, of those ones that we've mentioned, which ones are your go-tos? So like for me, my go-to, I think I mentioned, I do intellectualization a lot. I do rationalization a lot. I think we all do that one a lot.
Which one do we do too much of and it is hindering our growth?
Okay, that's a good question, because intellectualism, I feel that just makes me stronger. But again, if I'm compensating and not actually dealing with the emotions, that is not going to help me in the long term.
Balance.
So, yeah. Balance. So share with us, if you can, in your comments, which one kind of struck a nerve with you, because we'd love to hear about it.
Yes, we would.
So the takeaway this week is to think about those defense mechanisms that you're using and why you're using them. All right, and we want you to live your best life. So,
boom, yes we do.
See you next week on Let's Talk About It Tuesday.
Peace out, Girl Scouts.